Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the news from SABA Satellite Channel, live from Marib. And our top stories tonight. PLC member Al-Khambashi attends graduation ceremony for 190 university students. Armed forces conduct drone strikes against Houthi positions across Marib, Al Jouf and Hajjah fronts. Also, Yemeni Rights Network documents nearly 59,000 civilian deaths and injuries since 2015. Welcome back. Member of the Presidential Leadership Council, Dr. Abdullah Al-Alimi, says restoring state institutions and confronting the Houthi militia remain the Council's top priorities, alongside improving security and services, strengthening national unity, and easing the suffering of Yemenis. In an interview with Saudi newspaper Ukad, Al-Alimi said the Council is also focused on institutional reform, combating corruption, recovering sovereign resources, and improving the performance of financial institutions, stressing that economic recovery is as important as the political and military tracks. He said the state restoration project has become a broad national effort involving political forces, state institutions, the armed forces, local authorities, and the Yemeni people, stressing the unity of the Presidential Leadership Council over the country's national priorities. Al-Alimi described the armed forces as a key pillar for state restoration, saying Yemen's military formations have become more coordinated, professional, and prepared, while praising Saudi-led coalition support for training, capacity building, and military coordination. On peace, Al-Alimi said the government views it as a strategic choice, but argued that the Houthis have used periods of de-escalation to strengthen their military capabilities. He stressed that sustainable peace requires ending the coup and restoring state institutions. On the southern issue, Al-Alimi reaffirmed the legitimacy of the southern cause and said its future should be determined by Southerners through an inclusive and peaceful political process, while praising Saudi Arabia's sponsorship of Southern dialogue. Member of the Presidential Leadership Council and Hadramaut Governor Salim Al-Khambashi has attended a graduation ceremony for 190 students from Arab University for the 2025-2026 academic year in Mukalla. Al-Khambashi congratulated the graduates and their families, praising the university's efforts in preparing academic and professional cadres. He stressed that investing in people and education is fundamental to building the future of Hadramaut and Yemen, urging graduates to apply their knowledge and skills in serving their communities and supporting development, while continuing to enhance their capabilities and meet labor market demands. He also praised the role of universities and educational institutions in preparing qualified generations and reaffirmed the local authorities' support for efforts to improve higher education and the quality of its graduates. The ceremony also featured speeches by the university president and graduates, along with cultural performances and honors for local authorities, Hadramaut University, and the graduating students. Ministry of Foreign Affairs has strongly condemned the continued Israeli escalation in the Gaza Strip and the targeting of civilians, including women and children, warning that such actions are worsening the humanitarian situation and undermining efforts to consolidate the ceasefire and achieve de-escalation. The ministry also rejected the Israeli government's E1 settlement plan, warning that it threatens the geographical continuity between the occupied West Bank and Jerusalem and undermines prospects for establishing an independent Palestinian state. In a statement, the ministry described the plan as a blatant violation of international law and the relevant UN Security Council resolutions, particularly Resolution 2334. Yemen's foreign ministry warned that continued attacks and settlement expansion undermine international efforts to consolidate the ceasefire, while increasing the risk of further conflict and instability across the region. The ministry affirmed Yemen's support for the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people, foremost among them the right to establish an independent state, and called on the international community to protect civilians, halt violations and settlement activities, and support efforts toward a just, comprehensive, and lasting peace. Transport Minister Mohsen Al-Umari, accompanied by Civil Aviation and Meteorology Authority Chairman Captain Saleh bin Naid, has laid the foundation stones for a new Civil Aviation and Meteorology Authority building and a Civil Aviation and Meteorology Institute at Aden International Airport. The two projects are being self-funded by the authority. The new authority building will cover approximately 20,636 square meters, including 6,143 square meter main building and 14,492 square meters for parking areas, courtyards, supporting buildings and facilities. The Civil Aviation and Meteorology Institute will cover 10,000 square meters and include 19 administrative offices, 7 classrooms, and 7 training laboratories. Al-Umari said the projects represent an important step toward developing the civil aviation sector and modernizing the authority's infrastructure, despite the challenges facing the country. The authority chairman described the projects as a key milestone in the authority's development, while the Transport Minister's Air Transport Undersecretary said the new institute would help qualify national cadres in accordance with international civil aviation standards. Our ambassador to the United States, Jamila Ali Raja, has discussed with the Executive Director of Marshall Legacy Institute, Ellis Burt, and the Executive Director of Hadramaut Human Development Foundation, Shane Rose, programs and initiatives supporting Yemenis in Yemen and the United States. The meeting in Washington focused on assistance for landmine survivors, youth empowerment, and expanding educational opportunities. The sites also discussed the Peace Through Sports program, which connects students in the United States with students in Hadramaut, and the importance of expanding the initiative to include members of the Yemeni community in the United States. Ambassador Raja stressed the importance of strengthening education and cultural cooperation, including supporting performances by the Yemeni Orchestra in the United States to highlight Yemen's cultural diversity and heritage. She also praised continued coordination between the embassy and relevant organizations to support Yemen and its people and strengthen ties between Yemen and the United States. The armed forces continue to carry out targeted military operations using drones across various fronts throughout the theater of operations. In Marib Governorate, the Armed Forces Media Center released footage last night showing targeted drone strikes carried out by the armed forces against Houthi militia elements and vehicles on the northwestern fronts of Marib, within the 7th Military Region's area of operations. The Armed Forces Media Center also released footage showing military drones targeting a Houthi militia combat vehicle on the eastern front of Al Jawf Governorate, within the area of the operations of the 6th Military Region. The Armed Forces Media Center also released footage documenting drone strikes by the armed forces targeting Houthi militia positions, gatherings, vehicles and fighters in the 5th Military Region's area of operations in northern Hajja Governorate. The media center also aired footage showing a drone strike on a Houthi command and control room while several field commanders were meeting on the Hajj front. Another operation targeted heavy equipment and excavation machinery used by the Houthi militia to build fortifications within the 5th Military Region's area of operations in Hajj Governorate. The Yemeni Network for Rights and Freedom says it has documented 58,904 cases of civilian deaths and injuries attributed to the Houthi militia between January 2015 and the first half of 2026. According to a report by the network, 15,478 civilians were killed, including 1,216 women and 943 children, while 35,654 civilians were injured, including 6,348 women and 4,283 children. The network said its field teams also documented 1,637 deaths caused by the Houthi laid landmines, including 213 children and 198 women. The mines reportedly injured another 6,135 civilians, including 741 children and 362 women, while more than 798 people suffered permanent disabilities, including around 397 children. The network said the figures reflect the scale of civilian losses during years of conflict and the continuing threat posed by landmines, which also hinder the safe return of civilians to their homes. It called on the international community and the United Nations to take urgent action and pressure the Houthis to comply with international humanitarian and human rights law and protect civilians. That's all for tonight. Thank you for watching and have a good time.